Sex Talk with the Siegel Brothers is a weekly program designed to answer all your questions, including the ones you didn't even know you had, and to clarify the endless debates around the wonderful and fascinating world of sexuality. Join us for real talk about sex from two experts in the field. Richard and Larry Siegel have over 50 years of experience as sex therapists, educators, counselors, and researchers. The Siegel brothers are recognized around the world as trainers of medical and mental health professionals.
Hello, welcome to Sex Talk with the Siegel Brothers. I'm Larry Siegel, a clinical sexologist and certified sexuality educator.
And I'm Dr. Richard Siegel, certified sex therapist and supervisor.
And my brother, I'm proud to say.
I'd love to be it.
Yeah, thank you. Cheers to you, my brother.
I've been it my whole life.
You have indeed, and cheers to you. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for joining us. We have a milky Nigori sake tonight.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a strange ritual. I thank you for starting this. I like it. Kanpai, l'chaim.
Indeed, and everybody's health.
So thank you for joining us on Sex Talk with the Siegel Brothers on our new home on YouTube. Thank you to all of our new subscribers. We really appreciate you coming through and helping us spread the word, because people should be talking about sex and sexual health every day.
That's right.
And more people should be talking about it before they're doing it every day.
Mm-hmm.
And sexual health is just something that continues to elude us.
It's health.
Right.
You know, again, we look at all those things that connect. You know, it's not anything separate. You know, if you want to talk about what you're eating, you're talking about sexual health. If you want to talk about your activity and any exercise or lack thereof, we're talking sexual health.
You know, doctors know this. If they tell a guy that they're, a smoker, that he's at risk for a heart attack or a stroke if he doesn't stop smoking, he'll go, right? But if you tell a guy he's going to get erection problems if he doesn't stop smoking, you'll see an ex-smoker lickety-split.
Right. So I think the good news with all of that connection is that if you improve your overall health, you're improving your sexual health. And you know what? You improve your sexual health, you're improving your overall health as well. It's kind of a no-lose.
And sexual health is not only about physical health, it's about mental and emotional health as well.
That's right.
Really, the mind and body are not separate things.
Mm-hmm.
And to be really sexually healthy is to be aware, to know how to be present, and to be a good lover.
That's exactly right.
That's what we are very happy to be discussing tonight. Primarily since this, no surprise here, is a show with brothers, men, middle-aged men talking about sex. So it's a natural theme that we discuss issues relevant to men and the people who love them.
Yeah. And tolerate them.
Right. Because, tolerate is appropriate, because tonight we want to look at why we continue to hear the same old trends that men tend to be, and we're talking primarily about heterosexual men, clueless about female sexuality and the important pleasurable aspects of sex, shared sex, rather than thinking of a performance, an act that is done to someone, and success depending upon success or failure depending on performance.
Right, exactly.
And this plagues most guys. It's written in
really
the script,
does.
and it's so stupid. We shoot ourselves in the foot by denying ourselves the pleasure of
absolutely
sexual encounter.
Right. And I want to add something to what you had just said as well. And
That's
again,
why
it's
we're
not
here.
about it's not about beating guys up. We've often been accused of that. We are guys. We're trying to elevate our species, right?
That's right.
It's not about beating guys up, but there are just some realities that we have to be honest about and we have to be willing to face. Not only are so many heterosexual guys clueless about female sexuality, but most of us are clueless about our own sexuality. And
Amen
that
to that.
runs even deeper.
Yes, that's really, like, we should do a whole other show on just the internal lives of men's sexual selves.
Exactly.
Maybe get a panel of guys to talk about, because that's something guys do not talk about.
That's right. And
even to them for themselves.
Absolutely. And while tonight we're going to be looking more at being a better lover, it's probably a good idea if we get guys to just talk about what it means to be a lover. I think we would have so many different perspectives to work with.
And we can do a little of our favorite boy brain, girl brain tonight, because our guest is, we're very, very excited to have something of a reunion with a dear old friend. We'll be talking later with Dr. Karen Carpenter from Jamaica.
Yes.
Not Queens.
Not Queens.
But the Caribbean.
Right.
And the wonderful work she's been doing there. We've been very, very honored, and it's been a pleasure to be colleagues and friends for over a decade now.
Yeah, it really has been.
They took us down there for one of the first sexual health trainings in the West Indies.
Yeah.
Gave us the rock star treatment that was 2006.
Wow.
My droog.
Wow. 2006. That was a while ago.
Some time ago.
Yes, indeed.
And yeah, we've been jonesing to go back ever since.
Mm-hmm.
And I warned Karen that depending on how things turn out in November, I may be moving down there. Sounds more and more. We're all online now anyway, right? So I can do what I do from a beach in Jamaica.
And by the way, same message to our friends and subscribers in Canada and England and every other non-American place that we know of. You may get a call.
Yeah, pray for us.
Yeah.
Keep us in your thoughts. And
unless people do the right thing.
Yeah, here's hoping.
Yes,
cheers
indeed.
to that.
Yeah, drink to that.
Right?
Absolutely.
Here's hoping Americans wise up and vote right. This time.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. So it's literally not rocket science. Men just have to throw away the script, that unwritten script that we're handed that says it's about the performance, right? It says that an erection is mandatory equipment you have to show up with, rather than understanding it is the result of arousal.
That's right.
And few people understand that arousal is a relaxation phenomenon, not an excitement one. Mm-hmm. Be as excited as you want when you're coming, but if you're not relaxed before arousal, you won't get there. Right. That flip, that switch flip of the nervous system, the autonomic nervous system function. Mm-hmm. It's important to understand, and so much sex therapy, this is like teaching couples how to relax into arousal and then get into the high blood pressure and heart rate and everything that goes along with orgasm. But if you're like having worried thoughts, that causes adrenaline to be released. Adrenaline is speed, and speed is the boner killer.
That's right.
What do we always tell our college students who come to us in a panic? The surest way to lose an erection is to worry about
getting an
losing
erection.
an erection.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's the self-fulfilling prophecy.
It really is.
Classic.
Right. And again, and another thing too, to keep that little list going, it's another important thing for guys to understand as well, that your partner's pleasure is not your personal achievement. It's not your accomplishment.
Amen.
And trying to do that is not what you should be doing. You should be trying to focus on your own pleasure. We should all be sort of inside ourselves. If you do it right, that's one of the ironies, that when being a good lover really is such an unselfish act in so ways that requires a really deep degree of selfishness in terms of being connected and in yourself and your own place.
I think related to that, objectifying is not a bad thing. If people are doing it consensually too. I mean, that there is an element of...
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
But here's a question I often ask guys in the therapy room, or the telehealth room, as it is, the Zoom session.
The Zoom room.
And you can imagine the looks I get in response to this question. What do you get off on when you're looking at porn? Right? So you can imagine, like, what the hell do you think? It's such a stupid question because everybody knows what you get off on porn. So, no, think about it really. Whenever that point is that you decide this is the point you're going to orgasm.
Yeah.
What is it that puts you over the edge, right? It's the pleasure that you're observing. And if it's porn, chances are that's just staged anyway. Yeah. And it's powerful enough to trigger that over the hump to orgasm. But when guys are actually with a partner, a living, breathing partner willing to have sex with them, they're so in their head that they're not even noticing their partner's pleasure. Which if they did, they would get off on it. instead of panicking
Right.
about, oh, my erection.
Right. And there's another side to that too, that they become so obsessed and hyper-focused on giving their partner pleasure that they completely cut themselves off from their own.
Right. Again, sex is work.
Right. But if they give their partner all this pleasure, I just gave my partner 5 orgasms, so you know what? If I can't get it up, it ain't no big deal. Because I already pleased her.
Right.
All right. So there becomes, and that's something that I've talked to guys about over the years, that, you think you're being considerate. You think you are doing this for your partner, but this is just self-preservation.
Well, yeah, a lot of
ego.
Overcompensation,
Right.
like rapid ejaculators who fancy themselves masters of cunnilingus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a lot that we can really talk about, and
Which
there's
is not
a lot.
a bad thing, right?
No.
Ian Kerner wrote, "She comes first,"
Absolutely.
and that's an important message that guys need to get.
So
as well.
the premature ejaculator, we can use an example of sort of like Tiger Woods, that the overcompensation by having so many partners and bragging about the quality of your lovers, yet each one of those is literally a hit and run.
Right? Guys find
so it's about the numbers.
Strange psychological ways to defend their machismo.
Right. So with all that we can talk about, and this such a rich topic, and we are going to be doing different levels of this as we go forward.
Have to revisit this.
I really, really am excited about having Dr. Karen Carpenter with us tonight. And I think without any further ado, let's kind of introduce her.
Let's take a little quick break, and then we'll just come back and play the interview we had the pleasure of having.
Sounds good.
I'm Rachel Needle, co-director of Modern Sex Therapy Institutes. And Modern Sex Therapy Institutes is a continuing education provider. We provide continuing education for medical and mental health professionals around the world. And we have over 140 archived workshops on our website, so please check them out at www.modernsextherapyinstitutes.com. Also, we have a number of certification programs, including sex therapy, couples and sex therapy, LGBTQIA affirmative therapy, alternative relationships, transgender mental health care, medical sexology, sex education, and sex counselor certifications. In addition, we offer a Ph.D. in clinical sexology. So please, again, go to our website, check out everything that we have to offer. A lot of our stuff is available solely online from the convenience of your own home or office. We do things live in 8 states and live via webinar as well.
Hello, we are back, and we are so grateful. As promised, we have a real special treat for you this evening, a reunion of sorts with our dear friend, the most brilliant sex therapist in our favorite jewel of an island in the Caribbean, the wonderful island of Jamaica, Dr. Karen Carpenter.
Hello.
Welcome back,
Welcome.
Dr. Karen.
It's a double treat to see you both together. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
I have to say, Larry got a little gypped last night. I had the pleasure of being back on Dr. Karen's show in Jamaica. I didn't expect to be on that late, and we had just such a blast on Facebook Live. So many people were involved and asking wonderful questions. And of course, seeing the wonderful Michael Cuff was also an unexpected treat for me. So thank you for that.
Wow.
And you could be with us tonight on Sex Talk with the Siegel Brothers. So by way of introduction, Dr. Karen Carpenter is at the University of the West Indies Mona campus. That's up in the hills outside of Kingston. And she's the founding director of the Caribbean Sexuality Research Group, now in its 10th year. Is that right?
That's right.
At the university, the Institute for Gender and Development Studies. And the pleasure of being a fellow alum of we were both supervised by the late, great Dr. Susan Lee way back many years ago in the original Florida Sex Therapy Training Institute. And we're just so thrilled to have you.
Absolutely. And if I want to also ask you too, because you mentioned this in being on last night, but give a plug for your show as well.
Indeed, please.
Yeah, we're Love and Sex with Dr. Karen Carpenter. And our show now airs on Facebook Live, Facebook Watch. So we have combined pages of about 10,000 friends, Facebook friends. That's the kind of friend they are. But we do get a very active response from our viewers and listeners. and we have our die-hard, they're just never going to miss a love and sex. So they were thrilled last night when they had Ricky on. People were saying, wow, I got so much information. This was so great. Thank you so much.
Good.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And we had upwards of 400 views so far on the video overnight.
Oh,
Wow,
excellent.
fantastic. Yeah, we recently made the jump. I was telling you, we left terrestrial radio and the Federal Communications Commission watchdogs to do our own thing on YouTube. It's been working out well. But boy, we hope to get that kind of following someday soon.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I'm subscribed, so we're going to follow you guys.
Oh, good.
So, we were talking earlier about men, and that was the default. It was never intentional, but the default theme. I mean, go figure, right? Two middle-aged dudes talking about sex.
Not a stretch.
Ends up being kind of a regular theme. But talking a bit about why men continue, not, overgeneralizing, of course, but I think it's fairly safe to say most guys continue to be kind of clueless when it comes to understanding female sexuality. And we just love your perspective on how men can be better lovers.
Now, obviously speaking with that through a heterosexist lens, right? Because I think it's a whole separate topic if we're going to look at how heterosexual male lovers are compared to gay, trans, bisexual, ... male lovers are. I think there are qualitative differences.
Yes, there would be. The one thing that I think, though, that unites all our sexuality when we think about inclusion and diversity and how we, as all sexuals, LGBTQAI and heterosexuals, enjoy sex, is that it's kind of like driving a car. You could get in a car and drive it and have no knowledge of where the engine oil goes or where the gasoline goes, but it wouldn't make you as proficient at taking care of the car as if you knew that there were all these bits and bobs inside the engine that help the car to run more smoothly. So, sex is pretty mechanical in terms of intercourse. People get in, get on, and get off. But when we talk about pleasure, which is, as you know, the major part of what sex provides for us in a modern era, because we're not trying to have 12, 14 kids. We're trying to have 2 children max, perhaps. And then there are those of us who choose not to have children. So primarily we're talking about sex for pleasure. And that's when you need to know what happens under the bonnet. That's when you need to know what those bits and bobs are for. Yeah. And so whatever your sexuality, however you express it, understanding the biology, the anatomy of sex, helps you to be a better lover and a better receiver and a better self-pleasurer. If you understand how your body works, you'll know how to pleasure yourself better.
Excellent. Nice. That's advice we share and vehemently support. Right?
Absolutely.
There's still this old-fashioned idea that the partner is responsible for your pleasure, and if you're not getting any, oh well, you got a lousy lover.
Get
another one.
Right.
It's like rule. Everybody's responsible for their own pleasure and their own orgasms.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it was. You're reminding me of a story. It just flew out of my head.
Well, tell you, while you're thinking of that story, you said something that I don't want to let go, because I think you also included something that very few people talk about. Right? When we talk about being a good lover, I think 90+% of all people that hear that think about what they have to be doing. But you also included not just the doing, but part of being a good lover is learning how to receive.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? So can you maybe talk a little bit about how being able to receive pleasure is part of that equation of being a good lover?
I think at the heart of that illusion that we want to create around lovemaking, around the sharing of sex, whether you think it's wham bam, thank you ma'am, or you're going to have passionate lovemaking, I think there is a notion that we're both going to go away with something out of it. And even when the person is mistaken as to how I experience pleasure, they're imagining that I'm having great pleasure when they're doing what they're doing. So there is the sex between the ears notion of reciprocity.
Right.
It's an exchange. It's an exchange of passion, love, pleasure, etc. So I think when we go into that exchange, we're really having to also open up ourselves to receive pleasure for someone else in a way that we perhaps had not thought about. So perhaps they don't have our body map. Perhaps they don't touch us in all the right places. But if we're open to the experience, they might do something in a particular way that's different from what we've experienced before. But our openness to the experience, sex as an exploration.
Right. See, exploration and exchange are very, very different concepts than transaction.
That's what I'm thinking.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Too often it's the expectations, especially too many guys are entitled, thinking, you know, I took you out to dinner, so where's mine, right? That there's sex is a commodity.
And that's where I distinguish between a transaction and a lover. You know, anyone can have sex and get it off and do the 7-minute Chinese food type of sex. No offense to the Chinese, of course. And afterwards, you're hungry again.
Right, right.
The difference between having sex, having intercourse, and being satisfied by the sex you have. And that lasts so much longer if you can have a really wonderful sexual experience.
Right. And again, to Ricky's point too, with that, I think that difference between, and using that term exchange versus transaction, you know, where it is that real reciprocity, it's not about tit for tat, right? It's not about, I touched you here, I tweaked you, I pulled, I pinched this,
you have to
do me and do that. You know, you do me, then I'll do you. It becomes very perfunctory and very, very so performance oriented.
It's also kind of like watching two amateurs dance. They're always stepping on each other's toes. But if you watch a great tango, they're doing different things with each other and they're reacting and responding in different ways. But all those twists and turns end up being something that's satisfying for both of them.
Absolutely.
Nice.
That's a beautiful analogy.
Not necessarily executing the same steps, but wow, when you put it together.
And the way they look at each other, it's very, very erotic. Very erotic. The story I was thinking of was about your clitoris.
My clitoris.
Yeah.
Oh, I missed my clitoris.
We were at an ASEX conference. Was it Denver or
it was Denver,
Philly,
yeah.
right? And Larry won in a drawing, a wonderful, about, you know, maybe 10 inches tall, 3D printed purple plastic clitoris. And it was a wonderful conversation starter at the bar through the whole conference. But honestly, it was a little disappointing that no one, clearly not a single man, but no women outside of therapists or educators attending the conference could identify it. One woman asked if it was a robe hanger. Turn it upside down and hang a robe on the head of the clitoris. This is what your clitoris looks like, the entire anatomy of it, not just that little button. And you know, if men and women knew more about where women's sexual pleasure derives from, get it in, move it back and forth until the magic happens.
Well, there you go, because again, the notion that our reproductive function is also our pleasure function is something that we've been trying to debunk as sex therapists for the longest while. For us to understand that because the vaginal passage serves a reproductive purpose, and deep thrusting and deep penetration and depositing the semen close to the os, to the neck of the womb, is really good for having babies. But what's good for having babies isn't good for having pleasure.
There you go. Can we put that on a shirt?
Yes.
It's very difficult to understand. And also they find it quite intimidating and frightening, perhaps like your 9-inch clitoris. They find it very intimidating to think that a woman's clitoris under a hood, a term they use for their own penis, is the same as a penis. Ew. Do you mean she can experience what I experience if you touch that little button? That means she has a penis. Kinda.
No, if you look at them in cross section, the only difference is the urethra.
And it's a very disturbing thought for a lot of men.
Yeah.
The notion that a woman could get an erection, that she could be so aroused that her clitoris is actually engorged and experiences sensation is very concerning for a lot of men because they're not causing the sensation.
Okay, so is that really the source of their comfort, that it is pleasure that women can get without men, or is it some kind of internalized homophobia or sort of a fear of penises that they're actually reacting to?
Well, if we go Freudian, like we talk about penis envy,
Mm-hmm.
but I actually have been talking for as long as I've been around talking about sex, about vagina fear.
Yeah.
And I think
talk about clitoris
like
envy.
Clitoris envy,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, there you go, clitoris envy, vagina.
If there was anything to be envious about, I don't think I'd leave the house very often if I had one.
A lot more men smiling on the bus.
I remember saying to a client just last week, I said to her, sweetheart, you have to make your vagina stop talking. Because her vagina is talking so much that she doesn't get a chance to listen to what her head or her heart is saying. I said, it's loud, but you gotta tell it to shush so that you can make some decisions.
Now that sounds like a somewhat flipped script that we often talk about with guys.
Yep. And I don't
the wrong head. That goes for everybody.
Yeah. I don't think for women necessarily, when they have strong urges, that it's like a different thinking head. I think it's somewhat unexpected because nobody has told them that their vagina has a life of its own and that it wants things and that it makes decisions that you didn't make. So it's quite marvelous, and I say it in every sense of that word, when a woman suddenly discovers that she has urges that she didn't know she had before. And these are not appropriate urges. She can't put them in a little box and put a bow on it and say, oh, here, hubby. There's no hubby to give it to, So that sets women up for feeling that they're dirty or they're something's wrong with them if they want to do Sex in the City Samantha.
Nice.
There's many cultures who have that sexist thing where, oral sex on a man is so expected he'll shove someone's head in his crotch, but to reciprocate and perform it on a woman. There was a storyline I remember on The Sopranos that somehow a guy, that's the ultimate unmacho. I mean, a guy got whacked for it because he was so unmasculine to do that to his wife or his gumare.
Yeah, right.
Right. The wife, once the kids are born, that zips up like the Holy Virgin Mother. And
well, that's the whole thing too. That's why they even have in so many cultures, why you have that woman on the side to do things with them that you wouldn't do to the mouth that kisses your kids goodnight.
There you go. And that was the line I was remembering. Tony Soprano was a therapist.
That was Robert De Niro and Analyze This.
Yeah. Right. But there's a lot. I mean, there really is so much of that. And I know both men and women, and I think pretty much everybody is so loaded with all of this misinformation and all these myths and these fears and all of this nonsense around sex. So to wade through all of that, clear all that sort of brush out of the way and see what can most guys do. And I think it's safe to say that, learning, getting more information about how to be a better lover is something that everybody can benefit.
Yeah. Can do. And
I used to love saying about being a sex therapist is that we can promise certain things that nobody else can. And one of the things that I love being able to guarantee people is no matter how good of a lover you are, no matter how good the sex is you're currently having, we can always make it better.
Oh, absolutely.
And there's no end to that.
I think that's the great optimism of sex therapists, that we're always looking for better.
And I always, it's kind of cliched, but I think, things become cliched for a reason. So few couples ever have the opportunity to talk to someone the way they can, no matter what the problem is that brings them to a sex therapist. It almost always fades to the background because they're connecting in ways they never thought of before, right? Having sex in new ways, we've discussed redefining pleasure and that exchange, getting out of the performance, getting out of their heads, right?
Well, also I heard from our friend and a person we all admire very much, Esther Perel, that he was talking about why it is that men cheat, for instance. And she says, it's probably one of the only places where a man can be himself be vulnerable and not feel like a boy is in sex.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was extremely profound,
Yes.
because this is where he discovers his adulthood and his vulnerability in the same package.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's
So
really
when you
intense.
close the door on that, he becomes a rotten lover because he can't listen anymore. And he can't be open anymore to failing, to getting it wrong, to laughing it off,
Mhm.
because now emasculate him
Right.
by saying, what the hell do you think you're doing?
Right. Exactly. And yeah, and she talks a lot about that safe place for vulnerability.
One of my first tips would be for women to get men that they're involved with to be better lovers is tais-toi. Don't get down on him, keep quiet. I know it's irritating. I know he's driving you nuts because he's not doing anything for you, but take that conversation outside of the bedroom.
Nice.
Discuss the bedroom, in the kitchen, and somewhere else, over a glass of wine, over some other, but not while it's happening. And if what's happening is so disturbing to you, find another way to redirect without chastising. Because a good lover is a lover who's open to hearing what you'd like, even if they won't engage in the entire menu that you want. And I find often that men are more inhibited than women about the menu, because women are, as you say, made to think that they have to perform on men much more than men feel they have to perform on women. Men think if they thrust hard and thrust long, women should be pleased, and they're disgusted at the thought that we're not pleased with that.
Right.
What do you want? Didn't you see how hard I was thrusting? Precisely. So if that's not doing it, then obviously you're not a very good lover.
Yeah.
Right.
Or they're trying to emulate the porn they're watching.
Right. Well, that's it. But I think, again, another point that I want to just kind of bring out a little bit more that you're saying is that, if we look at that difference, and I like that characterization as well, that, I think women have a tendency, again, we're talking about heterosexual women, to perform on men, but men have the kind of pressure they feel to just perform.
Full stop.
In front of their women.
Yeah.
So it's really, there's a disconnection. The way
Yeah.
they even judge and evaluate their own performance.
It's interesting to me that when we get to that point where the man is going to be super vulnerable or the woman is going to be super vulnerable, that everybody retreats behind the mask. That's when the mask goes on. And if you're lucky, that person actually takes off the mask ahead of that. But in the moment of connection, in the moment of coitus, that's when the mask goes on the most, because I don't want you to see me uglying up my face.
Yeah.
I'm going to do this porno act where sex is pretty. Sex is not pretty. Good sex is ugly sex.
Absolutely. Absolutely. David Byrne from the Talking Heads, I believe, once said that we are at our ugliest when we are at our most ecstatic.
Noises, the most ridiculous things, but that's part of the vulnerability. So again, I think if men are expecting women to be doing the porno act, as Ricky said, during a sex act, then they don't actually want the good sex. They want a performance. You're not going to get an Emmy, you're not going to get an Oscar. Give it up.
Yeah.
I mean, beyond the dress up and the sort of preliminaries.
Right.
Once he goes to the main course, come on.
One of my favorite things to tell guys is, like, if you go to a NASCAR event and you watch these guys drive these $5 million cars 200 miles an hour around the track for a little while, and then you got to go home and drive your family home in your Buick on the highway. Are you going to be pissed that you can't drive like those guys? If you try, you'll kill yourself or somebody else. So why, when you're having sex, do you think you have to live up and be like those pros?
Plus, I think when a lot of men in particular, women too, but men, porno is for men and sex toys are for women.
Primarily.
And what's for women?
Sex toys are for women, and I don't call them toys because only children play with toys.
I heard Bob for the first time in Jamaica.
That's right. We were there. Remember that? That was the first time we did hear that.
The old battery-operated boyfriend.
That's right. And we have lots of stores now. Some very elegant stores that supply all your needs, and they come in brown paper bag delivered to your door. You don't even have to have the name on the product.
Yeah. Oh, a lot of people are surprised to find out who the biggest sex toy seller in the world is right now is Amazon.
Well, I'm not surprised.
Mhm.
I would have thought DHL because the guy's come in shorts. That's me being surprised. Okay.
That's awesome.
So if we could just relax a little bit, loosen up a little bit, and maybe we do have to wear a mask. Maybe if we were wearing masks, actual masks, we could hide behind the mask and have some fun. Maybe if we did a little masquerade, we
That could be another silver lining for COVID, right? Just keep your mask on.
Different kind of. I'm going to go into bin and take out my mask right now.
Well, but hey, I mean, actually, there's something to that, because even the CDC, and when we look at other countries, their main health services, it's amazing how, because of COVID now, things like masks and glory holes are being recommended by public health officials.
We have to find new ways. We have to find new ways.
Glory hole and safe sex.
It's a barrier. It's another barrier method.
It is an upside down world.
It really is.
So we go back to the lover issue. I'd say good lover depends on how long you've been in the relationship. Yeah. Good lover depends on whether or not you have multiple partners. Good lover depends on whether or not you are 20, 30, 40, 50. Because what a couple at 20 wants to get up to, which is the entire Kama Sutra, 162 positions, and what an older couple may want to get up to, even if they're newly acquainted, is quite different. Yeah. And so when we just get the engine, we want to test it out. We want to rev the engine. We want to put our foot on the gas. We want to go, 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 go. So we're trying to see how many orgasms can I have? How many times can I have sex for the night? How many girls can I have? How many guys can I have? And that's about quantity, not quality. And as we become gourmets, we take less food on our plate, but each bite has to be exquisite. And I think that may be why, for instance, traditionally older men want to date a younger woman who wants to rev, but is not yet so much of a gourmet that she's going to say, please don't put that with that. I'm just not going to be able to have that if I have that. Yes? Mm-hmm. So once you become more of a gourmet, you're going to want to have smaller bites, exquisite bites that hit the spot and give you a greater satisfaction level.
Wow. See, I like that, because that is a little different, I think, than the way many people, if not most people, sort of define good lover. Because I think it very often is, more often than not, how many orgasms your partner has. How many, and again, it's often framed as how many you give them, but just how many they have with you is often the way we kind of define good lover.
Because you could have an amazing lover that's an absolute gourmet, a technician in bed who knows exactly what buttons to press, and you could not have an orgasm but have an extremely satisfying sexual experience. You can then go and have your orgasm on your own. Yep. And you could have your orgasm before or after or both. So the orgasm doesn't have to be, it's not a destination.
Right.
It's really a destination. And the better you are at bringing yourself to orgasm, the less you rely on others for it.
Right.
You have to be extremely good at giving yourself orgasms. You know, and one of the groups that I love working with is anorgasmic women. I absolutely love working with women who don't have orgasms yet.
Yeah.
Because I say to them, get a diary, because we're going to learn about all the types of orgasms you can have. Once you start coming, you're not going to stop. So we want you to jot it down. I felt it here. I felt it there. I got it this way. I got it that way. So again, I go back to Esther, and she says, you know, it's not about what turns you on. It's about how you turn yourself on.
Yes.
There's
a brilliant
on to enjoy the experience.
Right.
There's a brilliant sex therapist in Amsterdam named Ellen Lon that says, I refuse to call them anorgasmic. I call them pre-orgasmic.
Pre-orgasmic.
Right? They just haven't yet.
They haven't yet. And I just love that experience when a woman gives herself her first orgasm. Once we get over that masturbatory fear, that masturbatory shame, that self-pleasure and loathing, then we get to a place where you can begin to experience it, and that somebody will listen. When you say, oh, I did this and I did that, and then this happened and that happened, it's amazing. It's one of the most intimate conversations you can have. So for me, that's a real thrill to have a woman walk out grinning from ear to ear after every set of orgasms.
Absolutely. So,
but it's not a destination. Ultimately, it's not.
Right. And again, even back to that point as well, that it seems like it's a tough sell for most guys to convince them to get their ego out of it, to get them to not be sort of product oriented and tend to be. And really, how do you get guys to say, it doesn't matter where you end up, it's how you're enjoying the journey, which sounds great. Right? And I'll admit, I've said that many, many, many times to many, many, many people, but I think sometimes, I myself get stuck in that idea. What does that really look like?
Again, I come back to the self. So when a guy, and the notorious Jamaican ego, the notorious Jamaican sexual ego. So when a typical Jamaican guy who has to make you come, please burn the t-shirt. That t-shirt is not worth it. When he says, oh, but if I don't make her come, I'm not going to feel good. And I say to him, well, give me a sense of how you make yourself come. What do you mean? And he says, all I have to do is, I jack off. And I said, no, but that's not an orgasm. That's an ejaculation. So let's talk about your sexuality. Let's talk about how you enjoy yourself. Is it functional? Is it just to get rid of some steam? Is it deeply pleasurable? Do you have images? Or sometimes longer than others? Tell me about that. When you're with someone, when you're not with someone, and if they can learn the difference between their ejaculation and their orgasm, which is seconds apart, they can now learn how to prolong the delay between the two, and that gives them some idea of the complexity of what a woman goes through. Because they begin to experience sex in a much more complex way, and they understand the self-power that it gives them to be able to delay that orgasm without feeling stressed about it, to just really lie back into it and enjoy the experience. And that's a whole new thing for them. To learn about your scrotum, to learn about where the skin is sensitive, to learn about whether you shave or not shave, to learn about all those things, and things like cock rings, etc. Whole new experience for them.
Absolutely. For how many guys does it rock their world to just have them masturbate with their other hand?
Oh, wow. Well, I think they're going to tell you they have to hold the phone in the other hand.
We used to joke about, like in junior high school, we used to joke about sleeping on your arm and then doing it in the morning, like getting a handy from a stranger.
Right.
That's funny.
But I think, and again, with that whole idea that men especially get so locked into this performance ritual that, again, includes, I think, that they often get used to ejaculating and not really orgasming.
Precisely. And they'll say to you, because I'll ask the question, okay, so you complain about your girlfriend or your partner who's not having an orgasm. I say, have you ever been with someone and not had an orgasm? Yes, well, I didn't come. I say, but you see, no, you need to understand the difference between like ejaculation and orgasm. Have you been with someone who was amazing? Yes, because she was good at sex. I said, no, the only good sex you've ever had, you brought into the room with you. Into the room with you. So how you felt about this person and her body and the goodness of fit and the things that you wanted. And if there was some physical goodness of fit too, that makes it even better. Then you say you had a great time. I say, okay, so those were the times that you had an orgasm. When you went away feeling, wow, this was great. That was an orgasm. Because it hit here, it hit you here, and it hit you there. That's the orgasm. When you simply come, that's an ejaculation. So if you can imagine that for yourself, what is it that you want for your partner? Do you want her to get it here, here, and here? or do you want her to simply give you the impression that she's having a good time? Is it enough if she goes ooh ah?
Right.
Think about it.
Right.
And that immediately makes them more sensitive to what the partner is experiencing.
Yeah, and I can imagine just even getting people, and especially guys, to just think about that changes the whole game. Because
Absolutely.
again, they don't have to do anything differently. It's not about what they're doing. It is the way
No.
they are adjusting their experience. It's still
Unless,
inside out.
unless you're actually creating harm, pain, discomfort for your partner, then it really is about what you're doing. It's about the how. And I think a lot of men miss that wonderful moment of sensuality and go straight for sexuality.
Right.
And think that romance is a bunch of roses. No, it can just be about a sensual pleasure of enjoying each other's bodies, just enjoying being naked together, just enjoying a bath together, enjoying making a meal while you're nude, enjoying simple mundane things together to bring yourself to the point where it's fully pleasurable.
Now, let me ask you a question on behalf of all of these guys, right? No, seriously, because I think this is something that most guys really don't get. Can you be orgasmic? Can you experience a full range of sexual pleasure even if you never get an erection?
Now, I've seen that.
The answer is yes.
I've seen that happen with people who were having other kinds of comorbid conditions, other issues. I've seen dry orgasms. I've seen multiple orgasms in men. There's so many ways that a man can orgasm if he allows himself a little time and a little bit of thinking out of the box. If you can just allow yourself to, men think that they know their bodies better than anybody else, but the truth is often they don't. So we're back to the mechanics of
I think you're being kind.
So for those guys, I'd say listen up a little bit, whether it's to another guy who did it differently, and that's where your homophobic, thing will kick in and say, I don't want to hear another man talk about his penis. Listen, or ask your partner what else she's experienced, because you'd be surprised what women know about men's bodies. You would be surprised the kinds of pleasure that women would like to share with men, but the man is like, oh, I've got to be in charge, and you can't do that to me. Yeah. Right. So yeah, I mean, an orgasm. I mean, a dry orgasm, for instance. People don't realize how pleasurable that is.
Well, it's an orgasm.
Because they're still waiting on on it.
Right. I mean, the technical term we use, the retrograde ejaculation, could be a part of that, but it may be completely separate. Right. And I think, when we talk about dry orgasm, I think that really does speak to the distinction that you made between orgasm and ejaculation.
Absolutely.
But
and
I say these tantra guys that practice for years and years to learn how to orgasm without ejaculation. Big ups to you, but I like sex as much as the next guy, but I got shit to do.
Yeah.
I can't imagine.
Well, like Sting saying he orgasms for 36 hours, which he then said, no, I don't.
Hats off to you, right?
No, but there are some biological barriers to all of that.
Right.
I think one thing that gets men to listen, but then maybe it's because of our profession, is when I speak to them about multiple orgasms. If I find that they're not listening, I say, well, how would you like to experience a multiple orgasm? Say what? And I say, okay, so let's talk about the penis a bit. Let's talk about how it works and what it likes. Yeah? And if you can get them just to listen up a bit, then you can get them to work with all the different types of orgasms they could experience.
That's good.
Yeah. That really is.
Like every time we get together, it feels like 10 minutes, and unfortunately, our time has flown by. So we just left to thank you and tell you how much we love you and,
so much.
miss you and miss Jamaica.
Gotta make it down quickly. Yeah,
Yes.
we'll have some
Been
fun.
way too long.
And
Yeah.
I hope as soon as we can start traveling again. And
Absolutely.
thank you for doing us the honor of joining us on Sex Talk, and thanks for
Yes.
doing what you're doing.
Absolutely.
I have to comment that it can't be easy being a sex therapist in Jamaica, in a patriarchal, kind of somewhat homophobic culture.
Let me tell you, they're growing up fast.
Good. I'm
strong.
really glad to hear that.
We're, Colgate is good, Colgate is good, Colgate is good. We keep bringing home the message. Yeah.
Excellent.
Thank you guys. Thanks for having me. And
Dr. Karen Carpenter, we adore you. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye. Stay well. Every time.
We just love her more and more every
Yeah.
year, and hope the times between our visits will continue to be shorter and shorter.
Yes, indeed.
And thank you again for having me on the radio in Jamaica last night. It was a blast. Let's get Larry on there next.
Mm-hmm.
And again,
Yeah.
big hugs in regards to Michael Anthony Cuff, the wonderful, ageless, and brilliant co-host and radio star in his own right.
And let's get him on for one of these discussions about men as
he
well.
also has a show in Jamaica about relationships and love.
There we
go.
go.
Mr. Cuff, we must schedule you ASAP.
Yes,
to
indeed.
to be our guest on this show.
Mm-hmm. So, well, I think that wraps up a pretty good week all around.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and I couldn't be more pleased. Sort of ending our week and our time here with Karen and with you, my brother. So cheers.
My Droog. Cheers
Right,
to you.
and to everybody.
Thank you to everyone who's tuned in, and thanks for the likes and follows and subscriptions to our YouTube channel. Join us next Friday and every Friday at 7 p.m. on the East Coast for Sex Talk with the Siegel Brothers.
Stay well.
Thanks for watching Sex Talk with the Siegel Brothers. Join us each week on Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern. You can also follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel to stay on top of the latest developments in the ever-changing world of sex and sexuality.